The pounding vibration of artillery fire shook the ridge like an earthquake at 27,000 feet. Sergeant Mitchell Townsend pressed his cheek against the warm receiver of his M14 rifle. His fingertips traced the crude wire modification wrapped around the gas system. A simple copper coil. 75 cents worth of hardware store material that had no business being attached to a United States Marine Corps sniper rifle. Through his Redfield scope, the North Vietnamese Army position seemed impossibly distant. 820 meters. Nearly half a mile. Well beyond the effective range any M14 should be capable of hitting. But Sergeant Townsend knew something his commanders didn't. The Russian-made Dragunov SVD rifles in enemy hands had been picking off Marines for weeks across distances once thought untouchable. Until now. It was August 7, 1967. Rolling hills 10 miles south of the demilitarized zone in Quang Tri Province. Townsend's unit, the Scout Sniper Platoon attached to 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, had been tasked with establishing observation posts along a critical ridge. Intelligence suggested a major NVA force was massing for an assault. 1 year. That's how long Townsend had been in country. 1 year of watching men die because their weapons couldn't reach far enough. His spotter, Lance Corporal Franklin Riley, shifted nervously beside him. "Staff Sergeant's going to have your ass when he sees what you did to that rifle," Riley whispered. "They'll court-martial you for damaging government property." Townsend didn't respond. His focus remained locked on the enemy sniper position. He controlled his breathing, feeling the rough copper wire pressing against his cheek. The modification had taken him less than an hour. It violated every weapon maintenance protocol in the Corps. "I count 4 of them moving into position," Riley muttered. "Too far for us. We should radio it in. Let artillery handle it." But Townsend knew artillery would be too late. The lead NVA sniper was already setting up. In minutes, dozens of Marines moving through the valley below would be exposed. His fingers settled on the trigger. Final adjustments for windage. "What are you doing?" Riley hissed. "You can't hit that." "Watch me," Townsend replied. And squeezed. The crack of the rifle echoed through the hill. Greenwood, Mississippi. Mitchell Townsend was born on April 18, 1944 in Greenwood, Mississippi. Third of 5 children in a sharecropping family. His father, Elijah Townsend, had served with distinction in a segregated unit during World War II, but returned home to find the same America he had left. One where a black man's service was quickly forgotten. Despite this, Elijah instilled in his children a fierce love of country and a belief that excellence could not be denied forever. "My daddy used to say, 'This country ain't perfect, but it's worth fighting for,'" Townsend would later recall in a rare 1975 interview. "He taught me that sometimes you got to earn respect before they're ready to give it." The Townsend family owned exactly one firearm. An old Remington bolt-action rifle that Elijah used for hunting deer and squirrel to supplement the family's meager income. By the age of 8, young Mitchell had developed an uncanny talent with the weapon. He could consistently hit targets that grown men struggled to see. In Mississippi back then, being known as the black boy who could shoot wasn't necessarily something folks celebrated, Townsend explained. "But my daddy said, 'Son, God gives gifts for a reason. Don't you dare hide yours.'" Education opportunities were limited in segregated Greenwood. But Mitchell excelled in mathematics and physics, subjects that would later prove critical to his understanding of ballistics. His high school science teacher, Mrs. Eleanor Jackson, recognized his potential. She provided him with advanced textbooks that the colored schools weren't supposed to have. "That woman changed my life," Townsend would later say. "She showed me that understanding the science of something, really knowing why things work the way they do, that's power no one can take from you." After graduating high school in 1962, Townsend faced limited options. Factory jobs in the North or following his father into the field seemed the likely paths. But when President Kennedy pushed for integration of the armed forces, Townsend saw an opportunity. Against his mother's wishes, but with his father's quiet blessing, he enlisted in the United States Marine Corps in January 1963. Basic training at Parris Island was a crucible for any recruit. But for the few black Marines in Townsend's platoon, it carried additional burdens. Drill instructors were merciless. Fellow recruits often hostile. But it was during weapons qualification that Townsend found his voice in the Corps. First time they put a rifle in my hands at the range, the instructor tried to take it back, Townsend recalled. Said, "You sure you know which end the bullet comes out?" I just asked for my ammo and a chance to shoot. When Townsend qualified expert, hitting 48 out of 50 targets at ranges many recruits struggled with, the snickering stopped. His drill instructor, Staff Sergeant Raymond Wilkins, pulled him aside afterward. Wilkins told me, "Private, I don't care if you're purple with yellow polka dots. You shoot like that, you got a future in my Corps." After basic training, Townsend's exceptional marksmanship scores earned him additional weapons training. Though the path to becoming a scout sniper remained largely closed to black Marines, he was assigned to an infantry unit where he served with distinction. When his first enlistment ended in 1966, he re-enlisted specifically because of the escalating conflict in Vietnam. He had no idea that soon those shooting skills would be all that stood between his fellow Marines and annihilation. The ghost rounds. By early 1967, American intelligence had identified a troubling development. North Vietnamese Army units were receiving increasing numbers of Soviet-designed Dragunov SVD sniper rifles. These semi-automatic, purpose-built sniper weapons outranged the standard American M14 rifles by hundreds of meters, creating a deadly disadvantage for U.S. forces. Colonel Thomas Richards, commanding officer of the 5th Marines, summarized the situation in a field report dated March 12, 1967. Enemy snipers are engaging our forces from distances our weapons cannot effectively counter. We are suffering casualties before our men can even identify where the fire is coming from. The Dragunov SVD was purpose-built as a squad support weapon capable of accurate fire out to 800 meters and beyond. By comparison, the American M14, while a fine battle rifle, had an effective range of approximately 500 meters in its standard configuration. Even in the hands of a skilled marksman, this 300-meter gap became a killing zone. American troops could be targeted with virtual impunity. Between January and June 1967, the 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines lost 17 men to enemy sniper fire at distances beyond the effective range of their own weapons. The psychological impact on the troops was profound. Marines began calling these distant shots ghost rounds. Bullets that seemed to come from nowhere. From an enemy they couldn't effectively fight back against. Major General Bruno Hochmuth, commanding the 3rd Marine Division, requested additional counter-sniper training and equipment. But the realities of the military supply chain meant that specialized weapons like the new M40 sniper rifle were in limited supply. Priority went to established sniper units, which had few, if any, black Marines. It was against this backdrop that Sergeant Townsend made a fateful decision. If the official channels couldn't solve the range disparity quickly enough, he would find another way. The thing about being in combat, Townsend would later explain, is that suddenly all those rules about who's allowed to do what don't matter so much anymore. What matters is who's still breathing at the end of the day. His opportunity came when, due to personnel shortages caused by combat losses, he was temporarily assigned to the Battalion Scout Sniper Platoon in July 1967. While not officially trained as a sniper, his marksmanship skills were undeniable. The unit needed every capable shooter it could get. What they didn't know was that Sergeant Mitchell Townsend had spent the previous 6 months studying the problem of rifle ballistics with an intensity born of survival. During his first week with the platoon, Townsend and Riley conducted 3 observation missions. On their second mission, they witnessed the devastating advantage the enemy snipers held. A patrol from Alpha Company was moving through a valley approximately 700 meters from their position when shots rang out from a distant ridge line. 2 Marines fell immediately. The patrol scattered, seeking cover, but there was precious little to be found in the sparse vegetation. 3 more Marines were hit before they could establish a defensive position. Target, 11 o'clock, approximately 900 meters, Riley called out, his eye pressed to the spotting scope. NVA sniper team. At least two of them. Townsend brought his rifle to bear. But both men knew the truth. The enemy was well beyond the effective range of his M14. They could observe. They could report. But they could not engage. All they could do was radio the coordinates to the command post and request artillery support, which took 17 minutes to arrive, long after the NVA snipers had relocated. 5 Marines died that day. 5 men Townsend and Riley had watched through their scopes but couldn't help. That night, back at the outpost, Townsend sat cleaning his rifle with methodical precision, his mind racing. The other members of the platoon gave him a wide berth, assuming his intense concentration was a response to the day's failures. They didn't realize he was formulating a theory. Hardware store physics. As he disassembled his M14 that night, Townsend's attention focused on the gas system. The M14, like many modern battle rifles, used a portion of the expanding gas from a fired cartridge to cycle the action. This gas was bled off through a small port in the barrel and directed back to operate the rifle's mechanism. The standard gas system was calibrated for reliability across a wide range of conditions, prioritizing consistent function over maximum velocity. But Townsend had a theory. What if that balance could be shifted? The Dragunov isn't magic, he muttered to himself. It's just engineering. The next morning, Townsend sought out Corporal Dennis Martinez, a Marine who worked in the battalion supply section. He had a reputation for being able to acquire items that weren't officially available. I need copper wire, Townsend told him. About 16 gauge. The kind they use for electrical work. And I need it quiet. Martinez eyed him suspiciously. What's it worth to you? My next 3 packs of cigarettes. Make it 5, and I don't tell anyone about those PX items that keep finding their way to the Vietnamese village down the road. Martinez smirked. Always knew you were too observant for your own good, Townsend. You'll have your wire by this evening. True to his word, Martinez delivered a small coil of copper wire to Townsend's bunk that night. The simple material had cost 75 cents at the base exchange. Its value would soon prove incalculable. While the rest of the platoon played cards or wrote letters home, Townsend retreated to a quiet corner of the outpost with his rifle and the wire. Working by flashlight, he carefully modified the gas system of his M14, creating a rudimentary regulator that would restrict the amount of gas diverted to cycle the action. The theory was sound, if unorthodox. By reducing the gas bleed-off, more energy would remain behind the bullet, potentially increasing its velocity and extending its effective range. The trade-off would be reliability. With less gas to operate the action, the rifle might fail to cycle properly, especially as carbon built up from repeated firing. It was a calculated risk, one that violated multiple regulations regarding the modification of service weapons. If caught, Townsend faced serious disciplinary action. But the memory of those 5 dead Marines weighed heavier than the threat of punishment. As he reassembled the rifle, Lance Corporal Riley approached, watching with curious eyes. "What are you doing to that rifle, Sarge?" Townsend considered lying, but decided against it. If his modification worked, Riley would be the first to witness it. If it failed, Riley would be affected by that failure. "I'm changing the rules, Riley. The Dragunov has range because it's designed to push that bullet faster and farther. Our M14s can do the same if we help them a little." Riley's eyes widened. "That's against regulations. They'll bust you back to private." "Only if it doesn't work," Townsend replied. "If it works, they'll be too busy giving me medals to worry about regulations." The younger Marine shook his head. "You're crazy. You know that? And if that thing blows up in your face, I'll be the one dragging your sorry ass back to base." Townsend smiled for the first time since joining the platoon. That's what spotters are for, isn't it? Neither man knew then that in less than 12 hours, their partnership would be put to the ultimate test. 4 shots. The pre-dawn briefing on August 7, 1967 was tense. Intelligence had reported significant NVA movement in the valley below Combat Outpost Eagle. 3rd Battalion Headquarters believed the enemy was positioning for a major assault on Marine positions along Highway 9, the critical east-west route that connected the coast to the Laotian border. Captain Gerald Morrison, the battalion operations officer, laid out the situation for the gathered team leaders. "We have elements of the 7th Marine Regiment moving to reinforce positions here and here," he indicated on the map. "Approximately 2,000 Marines will be transiting through this valley over the next 48 hours. Your job is to provide overwatch and early warning of any enemy movement." Staff Sergeant Cunningham assigned positions to his sniper teams. "Townsend, Riley, you'll take observation post 3 on the eastern ridge. You'll have visibility of the main approach routes from the north. Standard protocol. Observe and report. Do not engage unless directly threatened or specifically authorized." Townsend nodded, feeling the weight of his modified M14 slung across his back. Riley shot him a nervous glance but said nothing. The 2 Marines departed the outpost at 0430 hours, moving silently through the wet underbrush. The eastern ridge was a 3-kilometer hike through difficult terrain. They needed to be in position before first light. "You actually going to use that thing?" Riley whispered as they climbed, gesturing to Townsend's rifle. "If I have to." "And if it doesn't work?" Townsend paused, considering the question. "Then I guess I'll have died trying something instead of watching more Marines die while following orders." Riley fell silent after that. They reached observation post 3 just as the first hints of dawn lightened the eastern sky. The post was little more than a shallow depression reinforced with sandbags and camouflaged with local vegetation. But it offered an excellent vantage point overlooking the valley and the network of trails that fed into it from the north. As the sun rose, the valley came alive. Birds called from the scattered trees. A light mist hugged the ground, giving the landscape an almost peaceful appearance. Both Marines knew the deception in that peace. The morning passed uneventfully. By midday, the first elements of the 7th Marines began appearing at the southern end of the valley. Small columns of men moving cautiously along the established routes toward their designated positions. "Command, this is Sierra 3, Riley radioed. We have friendlies entering the valley from the south. No sign of enemy activity in our sector." "Over." "Sierra 3, command." "Acknowledged. Maintain observation." "Out." As the afternoon wore on, more Marine units moved into the valley. Townsend estimated nearly 500 men were now visible from their position, with more arriving hourly. The reinforcement operation was proceeding according to plan. At 1438 hours, everything changed. "Movement, North Ridge, 2 o'clock, Riley said suddenly, his voice tight. Townsend swung his scope to the indicated position. Through the magnified optics, he could see them clearly. At least 6 NVA soldiers establishing what appeared to be crew-served weapons positions. Among them, 2 carried the distinctive profiles of Dragunov SVD rifles. "Range?" Townsend asked. Riley checked his map and rangefinder. 820 meters to the nearest. 850 to the ridge position. Well beyond the effective range of a standard M14. Exactly as Townsend had feared. "Command, this is Sierra 3, Riley radioed. We have visual on enemy force establishing positions on North Ridge. Approximately 6 to 8 individuals, including sniper teams. Request permission to engage." "Over." The radio crackled with the response. "Sierra 3, negative on engagement. Range is beyond your capability. We're scrambling air support. Maintain observation and provide updates." "Out." Riley looked at Townsend. Frustration evident in his expression. "Air support is at least 20 minutes out. Those Marines in the valley are walking into a killing zone." Through his scope, Townsend watched as the NVA snipers completed their setup. One of them was already in firing position. His spotter beside him. Weapon trained on the valley below. they would have a clear shot at hundreds of exposed Marines who had no idea of the threat above them. The moment of decision had arrived. Townsend shifted his position, settling his modified M14 onto the sandbag rest. His mind raced through calculations. Distance, elevation, wind speed, the estimated effect of his modification on the bullet's velocity. All theoretical until now. "What are you doing?" Riley hissed. Command said no engagement. "They said no engagement because they think we can't hit them from here," Townsend replied, his voice calm as he adjusted his scope. "They don't know what this rifle can do now. And neither do you, Sarge. This is crazy. If you start shooting, you'll give away our position. They'll zero in on us before you can get a second shot off. Then I better make the first one count." Townsend settled his breathing into the rhythm he'd practiced thousands of times. 4 seconds in. Hold for 2. 4 seconds out. Hold for 2. His heartbeat slowed. The world narrowed to the view through his scope, centered on the lead NVA sniper nearly half a mile away. He made his final adjustments for elevation and windage, adding a significant holdover to compensate for the extreme distance. Then, between heartbeats, he squeezed the trigger. The modified M14 roared with a sound noticeably different from its normal report. Sharper, with a distinct ping as the restricted gas system forced more pressure behind the bullet. The recoil was heavier, pushing the rifle hard into Townsend's shoulder. Through the scope, he watched as the NVA sniper suddenly jerked backward, then collapsed over his rifle. A hit at 820 meters, with an M14 rifle that every manual said couldn't reach that far. For a moment, Riley was speechless. Then training took over. Hit. Target down. Shift fire. Second sniper moving to cover, 10 meters right of original position. Townsend worked the action, chambering a new round. As the spent casing arced away, the bolt felt stiffer than normal. The reduced gas pressure was affecting the action just as he'd anticipated. He acquired his second target and fired again. Another hit. The second NVA sniper fell. The remaining enemy soldiers scrambled for cover, clearly shocked by fire coming from a distance they thought safe. Third target, machine gun position laying down cover fire, 860 meters, Riley called out. Townsend shifted his aim, compensated for the slightly greater distance, and fired a third shot. The M14's action was noticeably sluggish now, requiring him to manually assist the bolt's rearward movement. But the bullet found its mark, striking the NVA machine gunner in the chest. "Command, this is Sierra 3, Riley was on the radio, his voice electric with excitement. "We have engaged enemy positions. 3 confirmed hits. Enemy snipers neutralized. Request permission to continue engagement." Over. The radio exploded with questions and demands for clarification. But Townsend wasn't listening. He was focused entirely on the remaining NVA soldiers who were now firing blindly in their general direction while attempting to retreat from the ridge. Fourth target, moving left to right, carrying radio equipment, Riley called out. 840 meters. Townsend tracked the running figure, leading him slightly, and fired again. The radio man fell. 4 shots. 4 hits. At distances that should have been impossible with his weapon. The remaining NVA soldiers disappeared from the ridge, abandoning their positions in the face of inexplicable long-range fire. In the valley below, the Marine columns continued their movement, completely unaware of the threat that had been eliminated above them. Riley was still on the radio, attempting to explain what had just happened to increasingly skeptical officers at command. Townsend used the moment to inspect his rifle. The gas system was hot to the touch, even through his gloves. Carbon buildup was already affecting the action. His modification had worked, but at a cost to the weapon's reliability. A few more shots, and the rifle might fail completely. Command wants us back at the OP immediately, Riley said, finally ending his radio conversation. Captain Morrison is personally coming to debrief us. And Sarge, he doesn't sound happy. Townsend nodded, carefully wiping down his rifle before slinging it. Did you tell them about the hits? Yeah. They didn't believe me. Said it's not possible to hit targets at that range with an M14. Did you tell them about the modification? Riley hesitated. No. Figured that was your story to tell. Besides, they'll see it soon enough. As they gathered their equipment to return to the outpost, Townsend took one last look at the North Ridge. Then down at the valley where hundreds of Marines continued their movement, oblivious to how close they had come to disaster. What happens now? Riley asked. Now, Townsend replied, I either get a court-martial or a medal. Maybe both. What neither man could have anticipated was that Sergeant Mitchell Townsend's unauthorized modification would ultimately lead to neither outcome, but to something far more significant. A fundamental reconsideration of Marine Corps sniper doctrine and equipment that would save thousands of lives in the months to come. The return to combat outpost Eagle was tense. Word of the engagement had spread quickly. A crowd of Marines gathered as Townsend and Riley approached the command bunker. Staff Sergeant Cunningham intercepted them before they could enter. What the hell happened out there, Townsend? He demanded. Command says you engaged targets at over 800 meters with an M14. That's not possible. Townsend met his gaze steadily. With all due respect, Staff Sergeant, it is possible. I just did it. I want to see your rifle. Without hesitation, Townsend unslung his M14 and handed it over. Cunningham immediately noticed the copper wire wrapped around the gas system. His expression darkened. You modified a service weapon without authorization. Do you have any idea how many regulations you violated? Before Townsend could respond, Captain Morrison emerged from the command bunker. Inside. Both of you. Now. The debriefing that followed was unlike any either Marine had experienced. Morrison, along with Major Thomas Bradford, the battalion executive officer, questioned them relentlessly about every detail of the engagement. Riley's spotting log was examined. Distances verified against maps. Townsend's modified rifle inspected by the battalion armorer. Explain exactly what you did to this weapon, Sergeant, Major Bradford finally said. His tone neutral. Townsend laid out his theory in precise technical language, describing how restricting the gas system increased the pressure behind the bullet, thereby extending its range and velocity. He explained the trade-offs in reliability and the need for more frequent cleaning. And you developed this modification on your own? Captain Morrison asked skeptically. Yes, sir. Based on my understanding of internal ballistics and observations of the Dragunov's performance. The officers exchanged glances. Bradford leaned forward. Do you realize that your unauthorized actions directly violated at least 7 different regulations regarding the handling and maintenance of service weapons? Yes, sir. And do you also realize that your actions quite possibly saved the lives of hundreds of Marines in that valley today? Townsend blinked, caught off guard by the shift in tone. I hope they would, sir. Bradford sat back. A patrol sent to the North Ridge after your engagement confirmed 4 enemy Kia, including 2 equipped with Dragunov rifles. Based on their position and the movement in the valley, intelligence estimates they could have inflicted significant casualties on our forces. For the first time, the magnitude of what he had accomplished began to sink in. Townsend remained silent, waiting. Here's our problem, Sergeant, Morrison continued. We can't officially condone the unauthorized modification of service weapons. That would create chaos. But we also can't ignore a potentially valuable tactical innovation, especially one that addresses a specific threat our forces are facing. Major Bradford picked up the modified M14, examining the copper wire closely. How reproducible is this modification? Could you train others to apply it correctly? Yes, sir. It's not complicated. But there are refinements that could make it more reliable. With proper materials and testing. Bradford nodded. Captain, I think we need to involve battalion R&D in this. If Sergeant Townsend's modification can be standardized and properly tested, it could provide an interim solution until more appropriate weapons can be distributed. Morrison agreed. Sergeant Townsend, effective immediately, you are temporarily assigned to the Battalion Research and Development Team. You will work with our armorers to refine your modification and develop a standardized procedure for its application. Is that clear? Yes, sir, Townsend replied, stunned by the turn of events. As for the matter of your unauthorized actions, Bradford continued, there will be an official reprimand in your file. Unofficially, however, I expect you'll find that reprimand carries very little weight in future considerations. The implications were clear. Townsend would face the minimum required punishment, while his innovation would be developed further. Over the next 3 weeks, Townsend worked closely with the battalion's armory section and visiting weapons specialists from division headquarters. His crude copper wire modification evolved into a precisely machined gas regulator that could be easily installed and removed as needed, allowing snipers to switch between standard and extended range configurations. Testing confirmed what Townsend had demonstrated in combat. Properly modified M14 rifles could indeed engage targets effectively at ranges approaching 900 meters under ideal conditions, rivaling the performance of the enemy's Dragunov SVDs. By early September, the first officially sanctioned range extension kits were being distributed to sniper teams throughout the 1st and 3rd Marine Divisions. The accompanying technical manual credited field innovations by combat personnel for the development, with no mention of Sergeant Townsend by name. This deliberate anonymity wasn't lost on Townsend. But it didn't bother him. As a black NCO in 1967, he understood the complex politics involved. What mattered was that Marine snipers now had a tool to counter the enemy's advantage. A tool that would save countless lives. An analysis conducted by 3rd Marine Division Headquarters in November 1967 estimated that the range extension modification had directly contributed to preventing approximately 2,000 casualties among Marine units operating in Quang Tri Province. The same report noted, the ability to counter enemy long-range fire has significantly improved morale among infantry units previously vulnerable to such attacks, resulting in more effective operations and reduced combat stress casualties. For Sergeant Mitchell Townsend, the aftermath of his innovation brought mixed consequences. The official reprimand remained in his service record, but alongside it appeared a Navy Achievement Medal with Combat V for technical innovation under combat conditions, carefully worded to avoid explicitly mentioning the unauthorized modification that had precipitated the award. In October 1967, Townsend was offered the opportunity to attend Scout Sniper School at Camp Pendleton upon completion of his Vietnam tour, an acknowledgement of his contributions and marksmanship skills that would have been unthinkable months earlier. He accepted, becoming one of the first black Marines to receive formal sniper training. I never set out to change policy or make history, Townsend would later reflect. I just couldn't stand watching more Marines die because our rifles couldn't reach far enough. Sometimes solving the problem in front of you is more important than following every rule in the book. Mitchell Townsend completed his second tour in Vietnam in February 1968, just as the Tet Offensive was underway. Upon returning to the United States, he attended Scout Sniper School as promised, graduating second in his class despite the lingering prejudices of the era. He served as a sniper instructor at Quantico for 2 years before leaving the Marine Corps in 1971. Like many Vietnam veterans, especially those of color, Townsend returned to a nation still struggling with its identity and its feelings about the war. The recognition he had earned among fellow Marines meant little in civilian life, and the technical innovation that had saved thousands of lives remained largely unknown outside military circles. Townsend returned to Mississippi briefly before settling in Atlanta, Georgia, where he used the mechanical aptitude that had served him so well in combat to build a successful career as an automotive engineer with General Motors. He married Elena Jenkins, a schoolteacher, in 1973. They raised 3 children together. For decades, Townsend rarely spoke about his military service, let alone his specific contribution to Marine Corps combat effectiveness. The story might have remained buried in classified after-action reports and the memories of those who served alongside him, if not for a chance encounter at a Vietnam veterans gathering in Atlanta in 1989. Colonel Walter Cunningham, long since retired from the Marine Corps, recognized Townsend immediately. Despite the 22 years that had passed since they had served together in the Scout Sniper Platoon of 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. "You're the wire man," Cunningham said, extending his hand. "The sergeant who figured out how to make our rifles outshoot the Dragunovs." Townsend was stunned that Cunningham remembered him, let alone his modification. "That was a long time ago, Colonel. Not so long that I've forgotten. Do you have any idea how many Marines are alive today because of what you did?" That conversation led to Townsend's story finally emerging into public view. Cunningham, now a military historian, documented the development of the range extension modification and its impact on operations in Quang Tri Province. His paper, published in the United States Naval Institute Proceedings in 1991, finally gave Townsend the recognition that official channels had been reluctant to provide during the war. In 1997, 30 years after his unauthorized modification changed the course of combat in Quang Tri Province, Mitchell Townsend was invited to the Marine Corps Scout Sniper School at Quantico as a guest of honor. There, before an assembly of sniper instructors and students, he was presented with a plaque commemorating his contribution to Marine Corps sniper doctrine. The plaque, which now hangs in the school's Hall of Innovations, bears a simple inscription beneath a mounted copper wire similar to the one Townsend had used. "Sometimes courage means knowing when not to follow orders." Sergeant Mitchell Townsend, USMC. August 7, 1967. During the ceremony, Brigadier General Howard Matthews remarked, "The Marine Corps has always prided itself on developing warriors who can think independently and act decisively when circumstances demand it." Sergeant Townsend exemplified these qualities when he recognized a problem that was costing Marines their lives and found a solution that official channels had not. His story reminds us that innovation often comes from unexpected sources, and that we must remain open to good ideas regardless of where or whom they come from. For Townsend, then in his 50s and a successful engineering manager at General Motors, the recognition came with mixed emotions. "I appreciate the honor," he told the assembled Marines, "but I've always felt that I was just doing what needed to be done. Any Marine worth his salt would have done the same if they'd seen the solution I saw." Mitchell Townsend passed away on June 12, 2011 at the age of 67 after a brief battle with pancreatic cancer. His funeral in Atlanta was attended by hundreds of Marines from multiple generations, including retired Major General Franklin Riley and several former members of the Scout Sniper Platoon with whom he had served in Vietnam. In his eulogy, General Riley spoke of the man who had changed his life and the lives of countless others. Mitch Townsend never sought recognition or acclaim. He saw a problem that was costing Marine lives, and he fixed it. When I asked him once why he risked his career on an unauthorized modification that might not have worked, he told me something I've never forgotten. He said, "In combat, being right is more important than being authorized." That wisdom saved thousands of lives, and it's a lesson every leader should take to heart. Following Townsend's death, his family donated his Navy Achievement Medal and the original prototype of his gas system modification to the National Museum of the Marine Corps in Quantico, Virginia. These items are now displayed in the Vietnam War Gallery alongside a brief account of how a black sergeant from Mississippi changed Marine Corps sniper doctrine with 75 cents worth of copper wire. Comment below and share this story so others remember what courage really means. Not just the courage to face enemy fire, but the courage to challenge established thinking when lives hang in the balance. Mitchell Townsend's legacy isn't just about a copper wire that extended the range of a rifle. It's about the enduring value of empowered innovation in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges.